So, ladies and gentlemen, please, without further ado, welcome my panel to the stage. Globally acclaimed leaders across the world of arts and culture. Please welcome first, Melanie Brown. Yes? Here she is. Woo! Woo! Oh, welcome. Welcome to the wonderful Melanie Brown. Obviously, Spice Girls, you know her, and also patron of Women's Aid. Then, please welcome Joseph Fowler, Head of Arts and Culture for the World Economic Forum. Bravo! Then we have Misty Copeland, founder of the Misty Copeland Foundation and principal ballerina, American Ballet Theatre. And last but not least, he's won so many Grammys, so many awards, I can't name them. I'd be here for an hour. Welcome the legend that is Nile Rodgers. Thank you so much to all of you for joining me here today. I'm going to start with you, Joseph, as Head of Arts and Culture here at the World Economic Forum. Why is it so important to have cultural leaders? Because, of course, the perception of the World Economic Forum is about business, it's about the economy, and it's about geopolitics.
Well, arts and culture sit at the heart of what the forum does. Arts and culture bring the emotion into what we do at the forum, and it's so important for us to have cultural leaders like the incredible talent and cultural leaders that we have with us today, because we integrate those cultural leaders into our conversations, into our discussions. And it's important at the World Economic Forum that we have a very robust arts and culture program from the opening concert. We also have our Crystal Awards, we have our art exhibitions, but we have many sessions as well. And when we're talking about domestic violence, when we're talking about access to education, when we're talking about any of those topics, it's absolutely vital that we include cultural voices into those conversations, because those cultural voices bring the emotion into those conversations.
You're all using your voices for positive change. Melanie, this is your first Davos, I believe.
It is, yeah.
How are you finding it, and why is it important for you to be here?
Well, first of all, I thought it was going to be much colder, so I packed my snow boots, and it's not as cold as I thought. But I think, for me, it's really important to be surrounded by influential people and to be able to talk and communicate and get my message across, which is predominantly for women and for survivors, because there's an epidemic out there. And I think we need to not just talk about it, but try and make a difference and stop the suffering, because it only happens to, well, 99.9% it happens to women. So it's a woman's problem, and I think women rule the world, so we need to take care of each other and make a change.
Do you want to just repeat that again? Do women rule the world?
Women do rule the world. I mean, you two are outnumbered up here, sorry.
And of course, Misty, you have your own foundation.
Yes.
Please tell us about it. You started it in 2022.
Mm-hmm. Yes. First of all, it's an honor to share the stage with all of you, and it's so important for arts and culture to have a presence here, and for leaders all over the world to understand the importance. It's a necessity, I think, the arts, for the human experience, for our communities, for our society, and bringing us together. And that's really the basis of wanting to start the Misty Copeland Foundation. Through our first signature program, it's a free after-school ballet class that's being offered to communities that wouldn't otherwise have access to even know what ballet is or to have an opportunity to participate. But it's beyond just a typical ballet class. We've really created this to serve a community that was told this is not for you and you don't belong in this art form. So through my own experience of coming from a single parent home, one of 6 children, living houseless for most of my childhood, and being introduced to the arts through an after-school program at a community center. And so that's really at the heart of what we want to do, is to show that this isn't about becoming a future artist necessarily, but what tools can you garner and gain and apply to other things in your life. And that's why the arts are important and vital.
And of course, now you were the recipient of Crystal Award here last year, and all the incredible work that you do with the We Are Family Foundation. Why did you want to come back this year?
I had such an amazing experience last year, and I think that it's important for me and the people in my program to have a platform where we can talk about the things that we do. You know, it's important. So what my foundation mainly concentrates on is bringing youth into decision-making situations, you know, around corporate political issues, but mainly what we do is we teach kids some of the same things that when I was listening to Misty, I realized that we were so similar in that I was the beneficiary of tons of remedial programs that were happening in my neighborhood when I was younger. Totally poor, but they taught me about financial literacy. They taught me about how culture was important. And because I had that education, I was able to use the arts to make a living, also to be able to communicate with people all around the world. I've played in almost every country. So this was an incredible experience last year. I met some important people that'll probably be in my life forever.
And Joseph, of course, you have the hard task of actually inviting the cultural leaders and choosing who comes. Tell us about that.
Where do I start? It's not an easy choice, but I think the starting point for that is to look at what the forum is focusing on, what's the overarching theme of the annual meeting, and who is really at the forefront in arts and culture and is championing a cause, is using their voice beyond their creativity, beyond their creative space, outside of that space, and is bravely going forwards and championing a cause, whether that be an ambassador for a foundation, someone who's founded their own foundation, their own, programs. It's a very bold thing to do, and I think it's often maybe underestimated the risks that are taken when someone who is an extremely popular artist, be that a musician, be it a painter, be it a photographer, and they step out of that space, out of the comfort of that space, into another space, and are going to be perceived in a very, very different way. It's an extremely brave thing to do, and I think one that should be commended. A light should be shone on those people. And the forum it's an open door. It's a platform that is accessible to everyone, and that should be applicable to arts and culture, and it should be applicable to very brave cultural leaders. And the three people we have the pleasure to sit with today are perfect examples of that.
Melanie, what have been some of the highlights for you so far? I know we're only on day 2, and what are you looking forward to most?
Well, I've met some really interesting people and had some really interesting conversations yesterday. And I think it's so lovely for me because when I started to talk about domestic violence and I wrote my book with Louise Gannon, this is back in 2016, nobody wanted to talk about abuse, domestic violence. Nobody wanted to talk about that kind of taboo topic. And I actually thought bringing out my book called Brutally Honest, I thought it was going to ruin my career because I'm seen as girl power. I'm a Spice Girl, yet I had 10 years in a really abusive marriage. And for me, I'm raising 3 kids. I thought to myself, I'm not sure if I want to share this. But then again, I thought, in the back of my mind, it's not just happening to me. Surely there's other people it's happening to. And so when I released the book, I realized it's an epidemic worldwide, the taboo topic that nobody wants to talk about. And now, through my campaigning, through speaking my truth, I've realized I've got an army of women behind me because their voices are not heard. So if I don't speak up, I have to speak up because it's something that goes on and on and on, and it won't stop until we actually stop it. And that means I like having a do-over with the justice system, which I'm very familiar with, which is, it's not very lenient on people like me, going through a divorce with an abuser because there's so many loopholes. So by talking about this and actually trying to make change, I've found a lot of comfort and self-healing, and also being invited by you to come here, which I still go, oh my God, why am I here? And why have I got an MBE? But I think it's very important because it's not about me, it's about the story that is so like repetitive, because women are going through it day in, day out. You know, we still have statistics. There's 3 women get killed either by their former president or ex-partner every single week. And that is globally around the world. So unless we stop it and make a change, you know, women are suffering day in, day out. So we have to educate ourselves from the ground up, from school, from just general education. We have to educate the educated, because it's not going to change if we don't. And that was a really long answer to your question. Very sorry.
Just one thing, Melanie very quickly said, and that's why I got an MBE. An MBE is no small thing, and that is a recognition for the work she's done. So I think that deserves a round of applause.
Absolutely. What also deserves a round of applause, Melanie, is actually, you know, when you came out with the book, how nervous were you to share your experience? Because, of course, the perception of you, girl power, one, you know, the most successful girl band in the world. And then you came out with the book, which I know was updated recently with 3 extra chapters with Louise. But how did that feel for you? Because that's very brave.
Yeah, it was very personal, and I literally thought it was going to end my career. But if it wasn't for my kids and my friends and family support, I don't think I would have ever made that leap. But in making that leap, I realised it's so much bigger than me. You know, it's systematic. And I think if we don't really have empathy and sympathy for survivors, not victims, but survivors, you know, it's like a call to action. We have to stand up and we have to kind of make changes. But yeah, I was terrified, just like I am a little bit right now. Yeah.
That was a very warm and supportive audience, aren't you? Yes, yes. And Nile, of course, I know from speaking to you previously, you didn't have a straight road to fame. Tell us about your upbringing.
How much time do you have?
17 minutes to be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to try and make this quick. So I was, you know, born to heroin addict parents. My mom fell pregnant first time she had sex at 13 years old. So my mom was just 14 years older than myself. And we were more like brother and sister than mother and son. In a certain way, that was good, because my mom, she raised me as a good kid. I was one of those kids everybody made fun of, the nerdy kid who was always doing things that were good. The thing that I was just so fortunate to have in my life, as I said, like Misty, I had these remedial programs in my neighborhood that basically were there to help Eastern Europeans assimilate into American society. But by the time Black people lived there, they had already done that, but the programs still existed. So I learned to read music early. My mom spoke perfect Yiddish, even though she's Black like me. And we were able to, I was just able to get one great position after the next, and don't think that they were easy. I'm leaving out the bad stuff. Yeah. But I was hired by Sesame Street when I was around 17, 18 years old, then moved to the Apollo, then worked for Luther Vandross. Then my first song that I wrote became a hit. And my next was a hit. Then I wrote We Are Family. I did Diana Ross. I did David Bowie. I did that. Going on and on and on and on, all the way up to Daft Punk, and now Beyonce twice. Since I was a child, I've been very fortunate. But my charity, I just really want to mention that you know, everybody thinks that, well, because I've been successful with music, what we would do is we teach people, young teens, about music. But in fact, what we do is we look for kids who are actually working on solving problems that are in their communities that they're working on. And we actually vet them quite seriously, because I said that as a Black man, I have to have 100% success. And we've done an incredible job. Our kids, and I say that really affectionately, because now, last night I see the first kids in our first class, and now he's a grown man. How old is he now?
I think he's 34.
34 years old. Well, so we've been doing this. We started it as a result of September 11 tragedies. 3 of my friends were in the first plane that was crashed into the World Trade Center. And we tried to start an anti-bias organization, but we quickly learned that our sweet spot were teens. And teens were very, they don't listen to the word no, they don't hear it. And they're very, very active and focused, as I was when I was a kid. So that's really what we do, and I'm incredibly proud that I'm here another year. And, like I said, it would just take way too long to talk about all the stuff that I've done. But mainly, I really am proud of the success of the We Are Family Foundation and what we do with teens and young people all around the world. And we are all around the world, not just America.
And Misty, can you tell us about some of the early challenges that you faced? You made history by becoming the first Black principal ballerina at the American Ballet Theatre.
Yes.
I mean, yes, there have been obstacles since birth. I shared a little bit of my background, but I wasn't introduced to ballet until I was 13 years old, which is considered ancient in classical ballet. I entered into this space where I knew nothing about it, so I didn't even know the challenges that were ahead. But I knew that it was the first time in my life that I felt safe from abuse, from instability at home, from all of these things. And I got onto the stage, and it was the first time I felt like I was myself. I had a voice, and I was strong and confident. And that was because I was supported by a teacher who understood the journey that I was about to embark on, being a Black girl, starting out late. And so, I thought I was entering into this very idyllic fantasy world, which it was for me. And then I became a professional, and it all hit me. And it was like, okay, you're the only Black woman in a company of 90 dancers for the first decade of your career, and just battling, all the things that come with being an athlete and being a professional. But then, just coming up against challenge after challenge in terms of not being given a fair opportunity. And I just knew deep down that this was the space I needed to be in, even though I didn't see people who looked like me. And I felt I had a responsibility not only to tell my story, but to tell the stories of so many who didn't have the platform that I have, that have come before me, and pulled those up who are coming after me. I mean, I can go on and on about the challenges, the injuries, the setbacks, but they've made me who I am, and they've made me stronger and understand the deeper reason and meaning, I think, by being a part of the arts and by being a part of ballet, that is bigger than me as an individual. And I think that it's so vital for all of us, not just as young people, but just as human beings, to acknowledge the importance of the arts. And, just hearing that you danced, which is new for me and maybe for a lot of people, but just, that I think we don't even recognize that so many of us in this room, I'm sure, have played an instrument or have danced, or, have been exposed to the arts, and how it's impacted who you are and how you navigate your life in whatever it is you do as in your profession, and why it's so important. But we have to actually acknowledge that and recognize that.
I think what's also impacting all of our lives is AI. And of course, that's the theme, is collaboration for the intelligent age here, Joseph. I just want to ask each and every one of you how it's impacting your industry in particular, because now in terms of music, that's quite hard, isn't it? And
yeah. So
also, Melanie, I'm interested to know if Spice Girls might have avatars like ABBA.
No, so
Nile first.
I was going to say that backstage in the green room, I told her that I used to be a ballet dancer. I don't let that out, but I did.
Really?
Yeah, that was actually my job before Sesame Street.
I'm sure you're stronger for it.
Yeah, no kidding. But when it comes to AI, I actually, because I don't feel qualified to talk about it because I don't use it yet. I'm 72 years old, so I'm really old school. I still sit around with manuscript paper. I write out my full scores. However, I think that technology, for the most part, is a good thing. I think that people are inherently good, but there's always bad actors in any situation. A couple of years ago, I was with Deepak Chopra, and he said to me, Nile, technology can be beautiful and diabolical, just like people. So, I haven't used AI yet, but sometimes I think of it in a very simplistic way, just like if a person gives me ideas. When we were sitting backstage, I said to Misty, the way that I write a song is I go, oh, you're wearing burgundy trousers? Just like Prince would go, raspberry beret. I'm very simple when it comes to writing music. So I always have ideas. So it's not my area. I can't really discuss it.
And Melanie, do you like that idea?
Well, first of all, I feel really bad that I was left out of this backstage conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny that you should mention AI because I was really terrified of it.
Really?
But I have 3 kids. I have a 27-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And I also was managed by Simon Fuller, who did the ABBA AI show that's actually been a massive hit. So I've been introduced it in a very, very simplistic but fun way. And I think there are some ideas with Spice Girls kind of swilling about to actually recreate something because obviously Simon Fuller did so well with the ABBA thing. And I think that concept at the time was actually like, what, you're going to have them on stage, but they're not there, but they really are, but it feels like they're there. So I think that's a genius concept and he's done really well with it. So I think from my standpoint, I have to embrace that. And if I don't, my kids will go mad and Joseph will be annoyed at me. So yeah, I'm learning.
Do you think you could see that? I mean, because there hasn't been a reunion. Everyone wants a reunion, but maybe it will just be a virtual one, Melanie.
Well, I am getting married this year, so I'm hoping all the girls show up. And if they don't, I'll just use AI. Okay? Put that in my back pocket.
Well, many congratulations on your
you.
upcoming marriage. Joseph, of course, it's been a huge topic here. How do you marry AI with creativity?
At my wedding.
There you go.
I think collaboration for the intelligent age is the theme of the annual meeting. And when we think of technology and we think of AI, we're often, the go-to emotion is fear. We're very scared of it. We think, what does this mean, especially with creatives? How am I going to protect my work? How does my work stay authentic? How am I going to make sure that no one's using my work without my permission or using it in a way that does not correspond to my profile or how I express myself or how I make my music? But I also think that it's an opportunity for immense creativity. And I think, if we wind back to when there was the camera was introduced, and imagine we were oil painters at the time and the camera comes along and someone takes a picture of our painting, we're going to think no one's going to want us to paint anymore. Everyone's going to take pictures, but people are still painting brilliantly and the camera is now an art form in its own right. So I think with the right guardrails, with the right framework and the right protective frameworks in place, I think AI is exciting and I think it will become a tool in the creative box, such as the guitar, or the ballet shoe, or the music that you make, the amazing music you make. I think it will just become another tool in the creative box. Yeah.
And Misty, how do you feel? Are you fearful of it? Could you have to protect your own image? Could there be a virtual Misty Copeland that you don't know about?
Yes. I mean, I think that's, the guardrails and the danger, the fear. But I think that there's power in the knowledge, just AI and technology in general. I mean, I think for ballet in particular, for dance, but ballet in particular, it's such an old art form and it's so afraid to evolve. And, when the pandemic hit, I think we all realized, how are we bringing this to people if they can't be physically in the theater? And I think that awakens something that's even bigger, where, there already have been so many people that don't have access to it, and we're not thinking of them. And I think that this is a brilliant way, by having virtual access to performances. And again, it's a balance where it's opening people's eyes, it's sparking interest, not taking away the experience of the live performance, which is absolutely necessary.
And how do you engage with your fan bases? You all have such powerful platforms. You're using your voice for good. How is your relationship with social media? That's been another big topic here, of course, at the forum, because of Meta stepping back on fact-checking. How do you feel, Melanie?
I get a lot of information from social media and my fans. I mean, recently I live on a farm and I have 12 chickens, and my chickens were just laying 1 egg a day. And I went for a walk around my farm and found 35 eggs. And I posted it on social media, and I got so much interest and knowledge, like, this is how you check the eggs, this is how you do that. I use it for good. And even if somebody posts something horrible or comments horribly, it doesn't affect me, because I'm just me, and I choose to share what I share. I don't overshare and I don't undershare. But the thing is, social media's there, and I think if you use it to your advantage and you actually have a voice, rather than just going, these are my eggs, which I did. But also, I have like a whole framework and website of support for women that need help or need rescue when it comes to domestic violence. So I've kind of partnership with social media, and I think I'm okay with it so far.
Do you think there's a responsibility, and Misty, probably within your area, young girls that are aspiring to be a certain body image?
Yeah, that's so much a part of my own experience, these pressures and expectations, especially as a Black girl, as a Black woman. And I, as you said, Melanie, trying to use it for good. And I think it's a really incredible platform, especially for art. When it's these visual kind of sound bites. I feel like it's always been a really great opportunity for me to show, someone who lives, who knows where, that doesn't have access to seeing a live performance, but also to set an example with positive imagery and positive body image. That's something I'm definitely completely aware of.
And now, through the work that you do with the We Are Family Foundation, with young people, how are you finding their relationship with social media, with tech platforms? Do they feel they can only get a seat at the table if they have those skills?
Our young people, and it's funny, I really don't mean to call them kids, but I always do, because that's how I think when they call me their G-dad. They totally embrace it, and I completely support them. Many of our, I could think of some of our stellar kids that have used AI in such a great way as an anti-bullying platform. And it was brilliant. Now, the horrible thing is that it was bought by a really big tech company, and they sort of suppressed it because it worked so well. And I guess that they sort of make a lot of money when people say bad stuff because they're just online. But in fact, she created this program. She coded, and she created this program from her heart, probably because there was a lot of bullying going on in her world, and I just have to theoretically support progress. Just to give you a stupid example, my band, as I said, I'm 72 years old, so all my music is really old school. One day I bought a drum machine, pissed my band off, pissed everybody off, and they said, "What did you do that for? You don't like the way I play drums?" I said, "No, I heard this song that went, pass the dutchie from the left-hand side, pass the dutchie," and I said, "How did they get that beat?" And somebody said, "You needed a drum machine." I bought a drum machine, and I wrote Carly Simon, "Why?" and why, and that's how you do it. So it wasn't that I had a problem with the technology and that I have a problem with people using technology. Like Deepak said, it can be beautiful and diabolical. I like to believe that most people are good, but there's
I would love
always
to believe
bad
that.
No, well, that's just how I feel. I was, look, my parents raised me to be, like I said, a nerdy good kid and to believe that people were good. So, I'd like to believe that the technology in the long run is going to be wonderful. There's always bad actors who do horrible things, and we see it now. I was saying this morning to a friend of mine, you don't even have to buy guns in America anymore, which is, they're thrilled to sell them, but you can print them and you can make your own guns, which is crazy. But in fact, they do. But, look, I've said enough. That's I support technology. I support advances in technology. But, there are guardrails that need to be in place.
There's so much talk about advances in technology in AI, but there's also a shocking report from the World Economic Forum, Joseph, that's saying there won't be gender equity for women for 134
years.
Yep. Which seems extraordinary. Misty and Melanie, I want to come to you. What are your feelings?
Don't come to me first.
I know.
I'm
I'm
just
like,
trying to edit myself.
Yeah, it's a lot to absorb. I don't know.
What more do we feel needs to be?
I think if we look back at the Crystal Awards last night, and we had some phenomenal awardees. We had Diane von Furstenberg, we had Ricky Yamamoto, and we had David Beckham. And all of them gave incredible reception speeches for their awards. But following on from the point you've just made, David Beckham gave an incredibly sincere, genuine, very passionate reception speech. And he spoke about the need to champion and empower girls and women. He spoke about the fact that he has a daughter himself, and he wishes his daughter to have the same opportunities that his 3 boys will have. And I thought it was so refreshing to see a man, especially David Beckham and everything he represents, but to see a man championing women and saying, it's not a women's struggle. It is a women's struggle, but it's not exclusively a women's struggle. In order for the gender gap to be closed, it doesn't take women to be stepping forward and rolling their sleeves up. It takes men and women to do that.
Together.
It also helps that he's married to my mate, the Spice Girls. So he has to be girl power.
So he's got girl power.
He's there. Otherwise it'll be a problem when he gets home. I'm telling you.
There'd be no choice. Melanie, talking about that subject, girl power, I mean, that's what you represented. The Spice Girls came onto the global stage, girl power. So for you, it must be hard to hear that statistic, but also for everyone to look at you and think she's the embodiment of girl power, but not knowing the struggles that you were going on.
Yeah, I think, when it comes to abuse doesn't have an age, a colour, a job certificate. Abuse can happen to anybody. And the fact that I spoke out about my abuse, I was probably the only one really speaking about it at that time. The only reference I had was Tina Turner. But she's American. She wasn't, born in England and Europe. So for me, talking about it was a big risk. But I also felt like there's such an epidemic out there. It's like everybody knows about it, but nobody talks about it. Yeah. And so to try and kind of get a hold of the reins and actually make people wake up. I've had an amazing response. And like I said, it's not just for me. Yeah. It's for all the other women out there that don't have a voice. And for me, I was in a 10-year abusive marriage. I was doing America's Got Talent. I was filming with Simon Cowell and Heidi Klum on the panel for like 8-9 hours a day. And that was my safe place, was at work. And so to be able to then go to HR on Netflix and other big companies like that and actually educate them on how to spot the signs of abuse really makes me feel like I'm doing something that actually, if it was in place, I needed that. So I'm helping women. And it's not just my voice, it's all the other women. I've got like an army of women that are constantly reminding me, well, what about this and what about that? Because we all have the same story. My story is their story and their story is my story. So to be able to be invited here and to be able to speak on these on these topics and this taboo topic especially is really heartfelt for me, because I've lived it and I still live it. I can't unsee what has happened to me, and neither can those other women.
Do you feel it's still taboo? I mean, what is the reaction?
I mean, it's not so much taboo as in back in 2015, nobody wanted to interview me, nobody wanted to publish my book. But now we have, you know, like local TV shows like Coronation Street that I advise on that actually implement the signs of abuse. So it's in everybody's living room, like 15 million people each week. So we're now more open to talking about it. People, you know, in their family dinners on a night time with their kids will talk about the side effects of abuse or how to spot abuse or the red flags. But it's not enough to just talk about it. We need to kind of do something more. We need to overhaul the justice system. We need to educate the police, because if I'm in a domestic violence situation, would I feel safe calling the police if they're not educated? 9 times out of 10, they're going to take me in handcuffs because the perpetrator's so good at convincing everybody it's my fault, then I haven't got a leg to stand on. Yeah. Plus, I'm isolated. I haven't been in contact with my friends or family, you know, because abuse affects not just you, but everybody around you, and you feel so alone. So, yeah.
You are sharing your story on a huge platform here, Melanie, and at the forum. What reaction do you want? What changes do you want? What do you want the leaders who are here to take away?
Well, at the end of the day, there's not enough money put aside to actually help, you know, charities that can find women a safe place to go to or a refuge. They're actually closing them down. But at the end of the year, they end up spending billions on it anyway. So why not put that money aside, allocate it properly, educate the justice system, get rid of all those old fuddy-duddy judges that don't understand nothing about a woman suffering and then going through a divorce, and then the kids get taken off her and placed with the abuser. It's an absolute mockery. And I think, you know, we can bark on about it, but it's actually, we have to get into the meat and potatoes of why it's still going on and why it's still allowed to go on, and why me as a woman is afraid to go to court, because I have to then sit like here from my abuser. I'm terrified. I don't want to have to be put in a position like that. So then I don't go to court and he wins everything. It's like a vicious cycle and a circle. And I just recently got my doctorate at university and passed my trauma course. So, I mean, I didn't even finish school, so it was pretty big for me to get that achievement at nearly 50. But to be able to educate myself for the right reasons and want to actually understand the economics, it was a sham for me, and it was so disappointing to know that money's not being put to where it actually needs to get put. And if I'm a woman suffering from abuse, I get put into the system and I get lost because there's so many other people that are having to deal with me that don't understand my story. And then maybe I get put in prison because I've got PTSD from abuse. It's like we need to kind of re-educate and restart the foundations. And I know how to do that.
Well done.
At the top of this conversation, you were asking me about the importance of cultural leaders at the annual meeting. And the 3 of these incredible people are examples of that. And I think listening to Melanie just now, a lot of people know Melanie because, of course, being one of the Spice Girls, and everyone in this room. I actually said to friends at the forum when I was talking about the idea of Melanie coming, I was saying, I bet you not one person in the Congress Center is incapable of whistling at least one Spice Girl song.
So they really annoying, I know.
No, that's not my point.
Which one did you whistle?
Wannabe.
Wannabe. Niall, which one did you do?
Pardon me?
First Spice
He's
Girl
like,
song.
who were the Spice Girls?
Your first Spice Girl song, what comes to your head?
Wannabe.
Wannabe. That's what you really want. But the point I'm making is, isn't this phenomenal to hear Melanie speak the way she's speaking, so passionately about what has been, unfortunately, a life experience, but she's turned it around and she's championing and she's making change, and that is girl power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just a final message from all of you. I'd like to ask Nile, Misty, you, Joseph, and Melanie, if you had one message that you wanted to get across to the leaders here at Davos, what would that be? Just one, Niall.
Why can't we just all be good people? I really don't understand it. When you were just telling your story, I just thought of all of the, you know, our programs are so extensive. the amount of girls and women that we've rescued just because of their culture, where the men in their villages can take them and marry them off, and their children, and boys who are gay, their parents, want to kill them and things like. I mean, we do this all the time, and it's just amazing to me that people can have that much hatred for others and people that they disagree with. And I just don't understand it, because my mom at 14 years old decided to, instead of go back to school, she got a job as an IBM key punch operator at 14 years old. And she was just a good person. And I just wish people could be good.
Thank you, Nile and Misty.
It's a good one. Everyone should have access to arts education. I think that's really, it. That it shouldn't be for one type of person, just for, more diversity and equity and access to it. And to understand that it makes strong, empathetic, bold people.
Thank you, Misty. Joseph?
I'm going to lean into what Nile just said and reference Diane van Furstenberg from last night. In her acceptance speech, she spoke about kindness as currency. And being kind doesn't cost anything. So I think just a little more kindness to each other, I think would make a big difference.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And Melanie?
Well, I'm realistic. There's bad people out there, and especially perpetrators. They find loopholes, and they can love bomb you and get into your psyche and get into your brain and seek you out. You don't wake up one day and go, oh, I'm going to marry an abuser. No, what an abuser does is he goes, right, that person and that person, I know I can get into that person's wallet. I know I can abuse that person. So unless we stop abuse, it's going to carry on. So my message is, if we don't stop it, we're all going to be living in a very unfortunate world.
Well, Melanie Brown, Joseph, Misty, and Nile Rodgers, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Everyone, what a wonderful panel. Do you agree? Woo! Nile, Misty, Joseph, Melanie, thank you.
Thank you.